Welcome to Manu Forti Ministries presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I am your host, Reggie Key, and today my guest with me is Brenda Law, Mama Brenda, as I call her. How you doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
I am blessed. That's my word for the next couple of weeks. I'm just going to make sure to let people know I am blessed. This has been a long time coming. I was you were one of the first, maybe I don't know however many people, but you were one of the first people that I wanted to get on this show. And you kept ducking and dodging me, but I got you pinned down now.
I don't know why, but
I know why. We're gonna get into why though. We're gonna get into why, but that's okay. Uh, I know what's on the inside of you. I've helped you publish a book. Every author that I helped publish was supposed to come on here. I was like, all right, now that I make it something that she signed and dated, where she said that she would come on here, it'll make it easier. But it still took a year before you came here. But I'm happy. It's here. It's for an appointed time. It's for an appointed season. So let's get right into it, Mama Brenda. You ready?
I am ready.
Okay, cool. Mama Brenda, do you consider yourself to be a genius?
Absolutely not.
And this is why you're on the show. It's okay that you answer in the negative, because there would be no need for the show to do this one-on-one. There would be no need for the book that I based the show off of. There would be no need for the workshop that the book came from if I didn't know that people have a certain way that they see themselves. And one of the labels that they do not accept, by and large, is this label of genius. And there's a reason for that. So we're going to get into the reasoning behind that. We're going to deconstruct this word and then kind of build it back up, hopefully seeing yourself on the inside of it. So this leads to my next question for you. Who comes to mind when you hear this word genius?
Oh, I think of the hidden figures, the people who Catherine and what's the lady's name? Mary Jackson. When I think of those people, those are geniuses to me. I mean, who can do that?
Got
That's
it.
genius stuff right there.
They were called computers before computers were computers, right?
Yes, yes.
So that's good. I like your answer. Clearly, these women are not the number one answer that I hear most times, but I do see the disconnection between how you see them and how you see yourself. Because what you're doing, what I wager that you're doing, Mama Brenda, is what most people do. Whomever it is, I'm gonna tell you who the number one answer is in a minute. But whomever it is that they associate genius to, they're like, I can never do what they do. And so because we say that they're genius and what they do, I could never begin to understand it, that means I must not be a genius. And that is incorrect thinking. They were geniuses in the field of science, but your genius lies elsewhere. There's enough room on the spectrum of genius for everybody to fit in. And what we tend to do is we always compare. We'll look at, I can't do what they do. So do you know who the number one answer is? I'm gonna give you another chance to say a name.
Oh,
What do
oh,
people say?
probably Einstein, probably.
Ding, 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 ding. You got it. Albert Einstein. And
Yeah.
they do the same thing. They're like, man, I don't know what the theory of relativity is. I don't care that E equals MC squared. Therefore, they start doing their own look. Therefore, I must not be a genius. And the same
Yeah.
thing that I'm saying about the hidden figures, I'm gonna say about Einstein. Einstein was one type of genius. There are plenty of others out there that don't have to be physics related. They don't even have to be academic related. When I go into classrooms, what I tell people is I'm very specific with the descriptive of genius. I said, we're going to talk about non academic genius because too many people associate genius to, well, I had to have a high IQ or I had to have a high GPA. If I
Yeah.
don't have those, then I'm not the one. And that's farce. Academic genius is out there, but there's more to defining that particular word and label than just academic. So let's get into it. Einstein actually purportedly has a statement, and I want to say it to you to see if you've heard it before, and I'm interested to see what your response is. Um, Pause though, time out. Before I get to that statement, let me go back to the hidden figures. What's good about your answer is that even though you disassociate from genius because you attribute it to them, at least they look like you. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when people attribute Einstein, ain't nobody ever, God truly broke the mold when he made Einstein. Ain't nobody looked like him before. Ain't nobody ever gonna look like
Look
him
at
after,
him after.
right? So most of the time, the first break that I do is you don't look nothing like Einstein. So if you don't look like him physically, what makes you think your genius is gonna look like him? When we begin to identify people that look like us as genius, it gives us more proximity to it because we're like, well, you are a black female, and all of them are black females. So there is an association that's not completely broken when you identify them, because all you're saying is, well, I could never do what they did. That's true, Mama Brenda, you couldn't.
That's right.
But at least you can say, hey, look, I'm black and I'm a woman. And if another black woman can do, if it was three or four of them, if they can do that, then there's something that's maybe in me too that I can relate to as well. The people, when I do these one-on-one sessions, the people who identify who are more prone to identify themselves as genius are the ones who say, hey, my mama's a genius, my daddy's a genius, my one of the people I remember saying, like, my daughter's a genius. And I was like, oh, okay. So when they can associate that word, that label, to somebody that they can relate to, they're more prone to say, you know what though, because it's in my family, it's by proximity, it's near me too. Yeah, I think I am a genius. So I want to be able to pull and bring this proximity closer to you than how you have it right now. Is that cool that I do that?
Okay. Yeah. I'd like to see you do that.
It sound like a dare. I challenge accepted. Okay. So here's the quote. You ready for it?
Yes.
Yeah, let me know if you heard this before.
Okay.
I'll pull it up. It goes, if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking it's stupid.
Yes, I have heard that before.
You know who you heard that from?
And I heard it from you.
You were saying before we started, like, oh, I don't remember. I'm not gonna remember anything. Like, okay, we'll see.
Yes, I heard it from you. Yeah.
How do you internalize that? What is that saying to you?
It makes so much sense to me. Um, and I think if I look at my world according to that, I would probably be more successful and I will probably go after more things because of that. Because that makes so much sense. I mean, that really puts everything in perspective. And for me, I have to see things. If I don't see it, you can say it all day long, but if I don't see it, it doesn't mean anything. But I actually see that. I mean, I can just see that happening.
Amen. Amen. I don't know how the prophetic gonna work in your life if that's how you function, but that's okay though. uh, we can stop recording right now, and I might be happy because when you think about that, you think that you would be more successful and you would go after more things if you had this mantra, if you had this statement in your mind. So let's talk about this statement a little more because there's some really just simple things that are out there. Fish don't climb trees.
Right.
It's fish belong in water. So if you want to see what a fish was designed to do, the first thing you have to ask, if you've never seen a fish before, is what element was it meant to function in, right? And we all know fish belong in water. Trees are on the land. Most trees are on land. And so seeing a fish out of water, that's an actual statement, right? I feel like a fish out
Right.
of water. We'll talk about that later. But knowing that something or someone is being judged by a criteria when they're outside of their natural element, well, yeah, they're not going to be high functioning. They're going to look at a bear climbing a tree and be like, well, I can't climb the tree like the bear. Of course you can't. You don't have claws, you don't have limbs. You have a fish has gills, fins, and scales. Those three things are by design meant to have and something be in water to function at a high level. And that whenever I picture this saying, I always picture like the fish being on an island, and that island is surrounded by water, but something has conditioned this fish to not look at the water, but to keep focusing on the tree. And the longer this fish focuses on the tree, the longer this fish stays out of water, what's going to happen?
It's gonna die.
It's going to die. And so I tell people this all the time. I see dying genius all around me
Wow.
because it's people who I see where they should be highly functioning, but because they've been conditioned to think about themselves as it relates to genius outside of their element, they keep being like, well, I don't have anything. And that's what we do when you compare yourself to Hidden Figures. Hidden Figures was climbing trees, and you're like, well, I can't climb trees, so I'm not a genius. Like, nah, you a fish though.
There's
Fine.
another, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, go ahead.
There's another saying that kind of relates to that, and I know you've heard it before, and it is, if you don't know the purpose of a thing, abuse is inevitable.
Oh,
If you take a hammer and use it for something other than what a hammer is used for, you can abuse that, not knowing what the purpose of that thing is. So I think that kind of like relates to that, what you were just saying, sort of
it
kind of.
does. Absolutely, it does. I've never actually heard that before, but you see my
Really?
reaction to it. And I'm so glad that you know it and that you made it the connection yourself. I often say, like, if you were to come across a hammer and you've never seen one before, you'd be like, hey man, what is this? What is this for? You might look for the person who made the hammer and say, hey, what's this? What's the purpose of this thing? So that you make sure you don't abuse it. And as it relates to yourself, you want to make sure, Mama Brenda, that you don't abuse yourself by saying, "Hey, I don't know what my purpose is. I'm not a genius, but hey, you know who made you though. Your Father
Yeah.
in heaven made you. And so if you ever in a place where you're doubting like what it is that you're called to do, you know who to call on. You know who to ask that will gladly tell you how you've been fearfully and wonderfully made, and He wants your soul to know it right well, right? That's Psalm
Yeah.
114. And so that's what we're going to do today. I want your soul to know right well that you're a genius by design. All right. Um, this in my mind, again, going back to this quote, there's somebody that's been coming along telling this fish, hey, you should be climbing this tree. And then coming back, hey, you climb this tree yet? And like I said, there's a conditioning that we've all kind of accepted that makes us be like, oh, I can't accept this genius term. That's for somebody else. And the problem with that is, as long as we keep pointing to other people and the genius that they have, then there are some things that you're encountering in your community, in your life, Mama Brenda, that Einstein been dead for a long time. His genius ain't gonna do nothing for the stuff that you're seeing, the stuff that you're encountering, and the people that you're encountering, because you're there, and it's up to you to do something about it. And so, what we're gonna do next is just to continue to deconstruct what genius is and to reconstruct it. We're gonna break it down into three components, and
Okay.
that's passion, talent, and purpose.
Okay.
Okay. Before we do that though, there's another thing. I haven't had a chance to talk from the faith perspective in a while, but what the world calls genius, the Bible calls in 1 Corinthians 2:16 the mind of Christ. Okay.
That's definitely genius.
Connection is spot on. But wait, let me explain a little more, Mama Brenda. I feel like you already seeing where this is going. As the church, we are the body of Christ. Yes.
Yes.
And the body can do nothing without the
The mind.
head.
Yeah.
And what's inside the head is the mind. The mind, when this multifunctioning organism called the body begins to move and interact with the world around it, it can do nothing except it's in constant communication with the brain or the mind.
Mm.
So when I go to touch this table, my mind is interpreting the temperature of the table, the texture of the table, and it's letting me know what it is I'm touching. I could close my eyes and know what I'm touching because each of my fingers is in communication with my mind and it's communicating back and saying, this is what it is that you're encountering. This is how the body of Christ functions. God, Jesus Christ, is communicating with every part of the functioning body. At least he's talking, but whether or not we're listening is a whole nother story. but it's meant to be two-way communication between every part of the body and the mind. And so to me, what that says is there's a part of the brain that's connected specifically to like your little toe. And so in essence, your toe is like an octopus. Each leg of an octopus has a brain. Did you know that?
Oh,
Yep. So it's fully functioning. And so I'm not saying your toe got a brain like literally in this toe, but because there's a part of the brain that's designated for the toe, then you can say that the toe, in fact, has a brain. You feel me?
yeah. So that's how we can, because our mind, our brain dictates to our limbs to move
To
and to
move,
function in certain ways.
to breathe, to have our right. What's the scripture? In Him we live and move
Move
and
and have
have
our
our
being.
being.
Yes.
It's a, even as even the poets have said, fellow poet, right? So if you get that correlation, if you understand that connection, then how can you not have access to the mind of Christ? How can you not have access to genius that's specific to you?
Oh, that's you're trying to get heavy on me now. But it is sad though, because the creator created us and we were created, made in his likeness, then we have to be creative because we come from the creator.
Absolutely.
So we have creativity. Um, and if we have creativity,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say this, but
Say it
he's a genius. We have to have some type of.
again. I can stop right here because see, here's the thing though. You're comfortable
I
saying
mean, why am I getting loud? I've never seen that before. I've never seen that before. But
it makes sense though, doesn't it?
it makes sense. So why? I don't understand how I cannot think that if I have the mind of Christ. Is that real though? Is that for real? That we can actually think like Christ and have a genius sort of mind in the world that we live in?
I mean, that's why I gave the address. I'm not making it up. I'm not saying that we have the mind of Christ. The Bible literally says it. And if the Bible says it, and the Bible is inerrant, and we believe it to be 100% true, then we have to believe that about ourselves.
That is amazing. That's just the thought of that is mind blowing.
It is. So here's the thing that some people get into this place of they're like, well, they're trying to be humble by saying like, no, I've been in this place, and I'm not saying that I'm not trying to get us to walk around saying like, hello, my name is Brenda Law, and I'm a genius. Like I'm not saying that you come off like that, but you'll see the importance of outside of knowing your name and knowing whose you are, you should be able to know that you have genius about you because the world, like I envision this fish, and somebody's coming along and trying to convince it, hey, you ain't climbed this tree yet. Most of the time, somebody went further with this example. They said, hey, look, the only person that would try and get this fish to climb a tree, knowing that as long as it stays outside of the water, it's going to die. The only thing that would want to do that is something that wants to eat the fish. Like, hey, stay out this water long enough. Keep trying to climb this tree. Hey, dinner is at 5. I mean, you ain't climbed the tree yet. The enemy is come to steal, kill, and destroy us
Yeah.
by causing us to forget who we are and whose we are. To
Oh,
disconnect us,
that's good.
yeah, to sever the body from the head and say, nah, you don't have no parts of this. Because he knows when we begin to walk in our creative genius, we'll begin to put our foot on his neck. And he would rather it be the other way around. He doesn't want us to be the head and not the
And
tail.
not to
He doesn't
tell.
want us to be above only and not beneath. He wants to be on top of us. And
Yeah.
so the first way he can do that is, nah, don't accept that. Just focus on humility from the place of don't think too highly of yourself. But true humility is also not thinking too lowly of yourself
No,
either.
yeah.
That's what I'm here to talk to you about, Brenda, because I know that you're comfortable. You're comfortable saying, "Hey, we're genius." But if I ask you again, like, what about you though? Can you say that I am a genius? You can be like, I'm not sure like coming out my mouth just yet. But I hope that eventually this will be more comfortable for you to say. So let's continue to break this down because where we go next, Mama Brenda, you're gonna love it. All right, you're gonna see why in a minute. So the first component that we're going to talk about, we're going to deconstruct this word the same way we're deconstructing genius is passion. So tell me something. What comes to mind when you hear this word passion?
Oh, I think of something that you want to do all your life,
Mm-hmm.
something that drives you,
Yes.
um, and something that you love, obviously. So,
Okay. The obvious part is what I'm going to challenge you on. So, as it relates to genius, we were talking about the spectrum of genius. As it relates to passion, I want to focus on a spectrum of passion too, because most people focus on, hey, when it comes to passion, focus on what you love. I love everything else you said. It drives you. It's what you want to do for the rest of your life. Yes, but when it comes to passion and genius, I'm going to say let's not focus on the spectrum of love. Let's focus on the opposite end of the spectrum, which is hate.
uh,
I read a book once. Oh, I hear you about to say something. What you
no. I'm thinking out loud. I
taking it?
guess
You're
it's
taking it in. You're just breathing. Yeah, because
yeah.
you fiery. You have some things. I notice some things that you hate. I know one of the things that you hate. If you, I'm gonna ask you in a little bit, and if you don't say it, I'm gonna remind you what I know you hate. But here's the thing, though. I read a book by this dude called Mike Murdoch. He's a Christian author. It's called The Assignment. It's like a 100-page book, really quick read. And what he basically says is your God ordained assignment is tied to what you hate. He said,
Mm,
because when God looks out on the earth, he sees his creation, but he sees a creation that's out of pocket, that's out of order. Would you agree, Brenda, Mama Brenda, that the world is out of order?
yes.
And the world is out of order if we just boil it down to an elemental thing. The world is out of order because of sin. God hates sin. Yes.
Yes.
And when he sees how sin has impacted his creation, not just humanity, but even the earth in general, it breaks his heart. And what he'll do is because he created the solution to this disorder when he created Adam and all of mankind in his image and likeness and put him, he didn't put him no place else but where he saw the disorder. He's like, there's disorder in this third rock from the sun, but I got a solution for it. And the solution is us. He put us on the planet, and here's what he said, do. He's like, look, I'm going to let you see something. I'm going to let you experience a thing. I'm going to let you interact with the brokenness of the world in a way that really touches you personally. And when it touches you, it's going to afflict you and you're going to hate it. When the brokenness of the world is so vast that it touches everybody in different ways. And when it touches you and you're like, "Ooh, I don't like how that made me feel. I hate that." And what may begin to happen, Mama Brenda, this might have touched you early on in life. But every time you see it, you be like, I hate that. Does anybody else? Nobody else sees this? Like, this don't bother nobody else? And you'll be like, man, somebody should fix that. Somebody should do something about that. Every time you get around your friends, they be like, don't let Mama Brenda see that. She gonna go off. And when you see it, they're like, here she go. She gonna be talking for you. You're gonna pull out your platform, you're gonna pull out your soapbox, and you're gonna talk and you're gonna preach for like 30 minutes on it because it just drives you insane when you see it. And that drive, once you understand that you were put on the planet to address it, and it gets your attention because it has traumatized you personally, that's how you know you're walking in your assignment. That's how you know you found your passion.
Mm.
What do you think about that?
I think you are spot on with that. That's
I can't take credit for it.
that's exactly right. Um, and it's funny you should bring bring that up because I was in class. Well, I wasn't in class. I was at the library at the school today,
Mm-hmm.
And one of our assignments, as I think I told you about this earlier, is we have to interview a professional in a career that we're interested in.
Yep.
And I didn't exactly know what I was interested in. And um, I went to social services because I'm thinking, they help people. And, but what I found out when I was in the library, I found a word and I looked it up and I found out what it meant. And I'm like, that's me. It's gerontology.
I already knew. I already knew what the word was going to be. Yep.
I
Speak to
had
it.
never heard of that before.
Yep.
I've never heard of that until yesterday
Mm-hmm.
that I heard of gerontology. And I'm like, that's it.
Tell the audience what it is.
It's it's the study of aging. Actually, gerontology is the study of aging, of the physical, mental um, aspects of it. How people change as they age,
Mm-hmm.
and the problem is that with the world is that people don't understand how people age, and because they don't understand or know what's happening, they have a tendency to abuse that. And that is what, can I say, that pisses me off? Because
Oh, I've heard you talk about it. That's why I tell you, like, if you don't say it yourself, I'm gonna tell you what you hate. I've heard you say it plenty of times because
so
it's
yes,
how it manifests is ageism, right? You begin to see people treating you differently in the classroom because you always tell me like I'm one of the oldest students in the classes,
yes,
at where you're going to college, and there's a particular way that they interact with you. There's a particular way that sometimes your professors interact with you, and it's because they have a skewed advantage of who you are, and they're devaluing you because of your age
yes,
or writing you off. And I
yes,
know that gets under your skin. Like, no,
yes. I when the embarrassing part is when we have to group together, and who wants to group with somebody my age? You got all these young kids, and they're grouping with their friends, and you're like, I'm gonna have to group with somebody.
right.
So so I was telling I met this guy that, oh, I can't say it. Okay. Anyway, so
Okay.
I met this guy today at school, and I just told him just a skid bit of what it was like to be in a place where everybody is much, much younger, and you're the only older person there, and how people react to you. Being in class, everybody want to know, what are you here for? Who's your child? You have a kid here in school, that kind of thing. Not that I could be in school. So people look at aging quite differently, not knowing or realizing that one day they're gonna be that age, you know. Like my mom says, and it's quoted in my book, um, as you are now, I once was, and as I am now, so you shall be.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't see that. So I think it's very important to get that information out there about aging
Yeah.
and what happens when people age. And I even have to teach my kids that, because they don't understand a lot of the things that I go through, and I don't do it purposely. It just happens. But anyway, I don't want to get off the subject here.
Oh
But
no, there's a natural prejudice that does. I mean, it's all relative because if you ask my 15-year-old son, he says that ageism is working against him. He'll say something like, oh, that's how teenagers are, and he was like, excuse me, like he doesn't like that when people say that. So it's relative, but we're all entitled to that. That relativity is what, not meaning to bring up Einstein with that word, but it's personal. Uh, the passion is always going to be personal because it either afflicts us or it afflicts someone we love.
yes,
We see it, we're
yes,
like, oh, I got to do something about that. And it doesn't matter whether you're paid to do it or not. You will go after it the way David went after Goliath. because he showed up on the camp and was like, "Who is this Philistine dog that's talking? Who is this? Y'all are y'all hearing this?" They was hearing it for 40 days. He was like, "Yeah, I got something for him." David did not, and the thing about it is, Mama Brenda, the thing that we hate is never something small. It's something systemic. It's something larger than us, and it's something that doesn't seem like it's any way possible for it to be overcome. But we won't care though.
Yeah.
David did not care what his stature was relative to Goliath. He was like, I'm going to handle him, no.
Yeah.
And I know the Lord is going to anoint me. He has anointed me to do a thing. And that anointing, that knowing is what I'm trying to get you to tap into. There's a knowing that you have that I've been put on this planet. God has given me, He has portioned to me something that breaks His heart. He has given me the tools and the means to address it. So, speaking of tools and means to address it, when David saw this Goliath, he knew instantly. He was like, "Yeah, I know what to do with him. I've been fighting. I've been keeping my dad's sheep safe from lions and from bears. I know exactly what to do." But you know what happened when King Saul saw his passion, he tried to get him. He said, "Okay, put on my armor." And David was like, "No, no, don't do that." He's like, I'm a child. You're a grown man. If you send me out here to fight this giant with your armor, I'm not gonna make it. Give me my slingshot and five smooth stones, right? He's saying, watch what I do with this giant. And so you have to know, you have to be guarded once people know what you're passionate about, because they will try to abuse it and say, well, do it. You should do this then. And you should do that.
Yes.
You should
Yes.
hear. This is what you need. And it's like, nope. You have to now shift from being David to being Moses, because Moses found out what his genius was to be the deliverer of God's people out of Egypt. He was like, well, I'm not of eloquent speech. He began to do what we all do. He began to say how he's disqualified. And God said, like, no, you're not qualified. I'm sending you. And of course, he kept battling back with God. But, he's like, who made your mouth? I know what your mouth can and can't do. You know what? I'm going to send you your brother. Moses was still talking trash. God was just like, what's in your hand? It's like, just a staff. You know how this story goes. And God said, exactly, put it on the ground. You know what happened? It turned into a snake. Moses jumped back. And then when he realized, he said, okay, God said, pick it up by the tail. You know what happened? He picked it up by the tail and it turned back into a staff. What he was saying was, you have already been equipped with everything that you need to address your passion. Because clearly Moses was passionate about his brethren being enslaved cruelly by the Egyptians because he killed somebody over that.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
So you may be asking the question, like, once you, let's go back to this broken term. Once you realize, let's go to your house. You just moved into your own little spot recently. And I'm gonna ask you a question. Have you come across anything that's broken in your house yet?
Yeah.
So what happens when you come across something that's broken and once you kind of assess the situation and you figure out, I think I can fix this. What do you look for once you come across something that you believe you can fix that's broken? What do you look for?
I look for the pieces to put the pieces together.
Okay.
I
Once you
look
get all
for
the pieces together, what do you look for to bring the pieces
the
back?
glue, the glue or the tape or
Glue, tape. What are those things called? Like, what if you had to label one thing that glue and tape are, and you mentioned a hammer earlier,
the
all those things
tools.
are tools.
Tools.
Tools. The
Yeah.
right tool for the right job,
Yeah.
right? And so your talent, because we're going to the next part of the equation, your talent, and a lot of times what do we say? It's your God-given talent, is your tool to address what's broken that drives your passion.
Oh, that's good.
It is good.
That's
It
good.
is the revelation that God gave me. And so your purpose in life, fast forwarding to the end now, your purpose in life is simply to discover what your talent is and realize that it's the tool that God gave you to address that thing that drives your passion, that brokenness in the world that has afflicted and traumatized you that drives your passion.
You said something that was really, really true about how people can come to you knowing how passionate you are about certain things and try to tell you exactly what you need to do, because a lot of people, and you really can't tell everybody because they won't understand, because people are trying to get me to be a caregiver. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be a caregiver. I don't want to just, I mean, I understand they need help as well, but I can't do anything with the world by sitting in one person's house and just sitting there all day, just sitting, watching person. I'm like, it's not a caregiver. I'm not looking to be a caregiver,
Yep.
and so I understand what you're saying because I've had a lot of people tell me that I should be a caregiver. And I'm like, I don't want to be a caregiver. I want to make a difference. And I can't make a difference being a caregiver.
Yep.
I know they need help, but that's
There's someone who is created for that purpose.
yes.
Real change, like going into retirement communities and changing the environment, changing the way a person feels about themselves, because that's a vulnerable state to be in when you
Yeah.
need someone to care for you. But you got to know, like, no, that's not my lane, though.
Yeah, that's not my lane. That's
Anybody that's doing anything other than and it's different if somebody is speaking prophetically to you. I hear the Lord saying this, and you establish two or three witnesses. You're like, that resonates with me. But for a random person that's come off the street and say, hey, you need, matter of fact, my grandmama need, like, nah, you trying to make my passion fit into your world.
yes.
That's the thing that is most dangerous, because that's the prejudice that kills genius, is trying to make someone fit into your world regardless of what it is and how it is they've been created. That's literally taking that fish out of the water and putting him
Yes.
on
Yes.
the street.
That is good. That's a good example. That's
Yeah. So I have another example for you though. Can I give you another example?
sure.
Real life. The other ones have been hypothetical and fictitious. This is nonfiction. This is real. So I was called to a school one time by a mutual friend of ours. She was a principal at the time. And she was like, hey, Reggie, can you come just like spend some time with these? I had got 9, 10 little boys. They're struggling right now in school. Can you just come like spend some time with them like this one day out of the week? I said, absolutely. I was workshopping this genius idea. So I came in like all confident, like, yeah, I'm gonna let these kids know that they're geniuses. We're gonna have a ball, we're gonna whatever. I got into the classroom. Uh, and one of the first things that I said to them was, hey, you're geniuses. And they about laughed me out the room. It was like, sir, I think you in the wrong place. One dude got offended. He was like, don't call me that. Like he like really got offended. Like I had cursed him out or something. And here's what I came to realize, Mama Brenda. These 10 little boys were in 3 different grades, third, fourth, and fifth, but they were in one room all day. Does that sound like that's conducive to their academic and mental and emotional development?
Mm,
That don't sound right, right?
no.
They were on IEPs. That's what I found out later. What we would have called special ed back in the day,
Oh,
individual education plans. So they were used to negative labels, prejudices that were being spoken against them. They were all minority boys, by the way. Let me mention that as well. And so they were used to, you have some deficiency. You have ADD, you have ADHD, you need medicine because you're chemically imbalanced, you're emotionally disturbed. They were used to all these negative labels, such that when I came to put a positive label on, it didn't, they had a knee-jerk reaction to it, like, hey, what you speaking? But then they would roast one another. They were used to like, they would be like roasting one another, talking bad, but they thought that was hilarious. But when I came in and said, hey, look, I need you to know you're a genius. Don't call me that.
wow.
So that's okay. That was kind of what I expected. Just like, when I started this interview, somebody said, nah, I'm not a genius. But I digress. I continue with my example. So so I said, all right, I know it can get anybody to talk, especially preteens and teenagers. I said, okay, tell me what you hate. And they said, sir, again, they're like, this guy, I don't think you know where you are. And now the teachers in the background sweating, like, oh my gosh, why are you opening the door for them to say this? Who is this guy? Who sanctioned this, right? So they come in, and I'm like, yeah, tell me what you hate. And these little boys who can never agree on anything, Mama Brenda, what to play, who hit who first, whose turn it was to go to the bathroom, whose toy was what, whose seat was what, they all agreed and told me the same thing almost in unison.
What?
Remember what I said, what it is that you hate is something that traumatizes you, and what it is that they hated was traumatizing them because it was marginalizing them and making them feel like they were fishes out of water. What do you think it is that they told me that they hate?
I don't know that they're all in the same class.
They're all in the same class all day. People are literally, I would feel weird. I was in the classroom with them. It was a door with a window. And when other kids were moving around or going in different classes, they would just be looking in. And I felt weird. I felt like a fish in a fishbowl. Everybody was like looking and like
You
this
were
place,
outsiders, so to
yeah,
speak.
this place that they went to every day that was supposed to be fostering their education was abusing them, was making them feel like a fish out of water. It was marginalizing them. It was institutionalizing them. This place was school. That's what they told me they hated. We hate school, Mr. Key. Now what? And they looked at me like, we got you. And I was like, actually, you're defining your own narrative. And I explained to him, I said, look, if you're telling me that you hate school, but I'm telling you that your assignment is tied to what you hate, then what you just told me was I'm looking at 10 future educators. And their eyes got big and it was like, oh snap. What he said, they tried to get out of my sight, like, oh no. I said, no, come here though. Like, nah, don't run from it. I was like, listen to what I'm saying. And this is how I broke it down to them. I said, the school system is broken. It's not functioning well for you, but it's trying to tell you that you're the one that's dysfunctional. Okay. I said there are 8 different learning styles. I think you've heard me say this before, but at most, we're only teaching from 3. And if you're not a left brain thinker, which is the one who processes math, right? If you don't think in that fashion, if you're not a verbal learner, meaning you can learn just by somebody talking to you, or you're not a visual learner, meaning you learn by when somebody shows you something. Those are the 3 languages that schools mostly are defaulted to operate under. If you have another learning style, this information that you're supposed to be processing and then being tested, standardized testing on, you're going to be like, I don't, this is like another language to me. I don't understand it. I feel dumb. I feel like I don't belong. I hate this place. But I said, look, let's explore some of these other learning styles because this is where your talent is. This is where you're gifted at, but your gift is being marginalized. It's like if David kept reaching for the 5 smooth stones and somebody kept moving it 5, 10 yards in front of him, right? This is what was happening to them. The target kept moving. I said, you know what? There's something called a kinesthetic learner. The kinesthetic learner has to move to process information. But when you get up to move, you're told, hey, sit down, be still. You're like, dang it, I hate this place. Or maybe you're an expeditionary or an exploratory learner, which means you got to put your hands on stuff to process information. But when you go to touch something in the classroom, hey, keep your hands to yourself. Your learning style is being suppressed. And so
Yes.
I
Yes.
hate this place. Or you're a right brain thinker. That's the person that thinks outside of the box. Actually, Einstein was a right brain thinker. He would be in the classroom staring out the window, and they'd be like, "Hello, Einstein, he did this in college. They kicked him out." He was told when he was younger, "Hey man, you might want to make sure he worked with his hands." His parents were told this, like he's not that bright. Einstein, the person who we define genius by, was told, "You not you're not picking up what we putting down here in this academic institution that we have called school.
You're not that bright,
You're not that bright."
bright, like light, bright.
Yeah, for real. Like, and he, for whatever reason, he didn't believe it though. And thank God he didn't, because we would have been robbed of one of the greatest physics minds that has ever come across this earth, right? The revelations that God gave him, whether he believed fully in God or not, what he got revealed to him was from God to benefit the whole world, right? And so these little boys needed somebody to just encourage them and say, your learning style is your talent. Your learning style is actually your gift. Because guess what? Our young men, our minority young men specifically, like this message is for anybody, but it hit different when it's talking about minorities and minority young men. Because when they get out on the court, when they get out on the field, they're encouraged to be kinesthetic learners. They're encouraged to be exploratory because making that split moment, that split second decision on the field, on the court, is what wins games. They're the dumb jocks. But I'm like, no, you're not a dumb jock. You learn differently. Own it and advocate for yourself. So that now when you're in the classroom, you got to say, like, hey, I learn best this way. Telling your parents, I learn best this way. so that they can then, so that now you're not told like you're dumb. Like, no, you're not dumb. You're just suppressing how you learn. But here, and that's a whole nother part in and of itself. But here's the part that I needed them to embrace. I was like, look, if instead of running away from this institution that's broken, that's hurt you, you ran towards it and said, hey, I'm gonna turn my learning style into a teaching style. Now, the stuff that's
Mhm.
missing in the school, you're representing it. Now, when you come into a classroom and there's a kinesthetic learner that normally wouldn't be reached, when you teach from the kinesthetic perspective, you're going to connect with them. They're not going to feel lost anymore. You're contributing to the school system that was broken and hurt you to make sure it doesn't hurt anybody else.
Wow.
Now, Mama Brenda, if enough if enough people understand this and they go into the system as educators, there'll be a representation of all 8 learning styles. Now maybe the system can shift and make it so that, hey, we're going to test everybody, not do these standardized tests, but test and see what your learning style is. And then now that we have all the full representation of the learning styles in the teachers, we'll pair up the teachers with the learners that have the same.
Mm.
Now the school system has to change, and that begins to heal this thing that's been broken since the
Right.
industrial age.
Wow.
Wow,
So that can actually happen though.
it can. It's happening in like Montessori schools. They kind of are in this kind of vein where they don't, if you want to walk around the classroom, as long as you're not disrupting everybody else, you're free to do so. But
Mm.
that's what genius looks like, Mama Brenda. It's revolutionary. It ministers to you first, but then once you begin to heal from your traumas, you're like, all right, who else can I touch with this? Who
Mm.
else? How I know now what my contribution to society and to my community is. Just let me get plugged into the right place. If I can't find it, I'll create it. I'll be an advocate for this thing. And so that advocacy is what I want to now turn around and ask you, like, what's your talent, Mama Brenda?
I like writing.
You don't just like writing, Mama Brenda. You're good at it.
I like writing. I like writing.
So, and I know this to be true as well because at the beginning we talked about how you're an author, you're a published author, you have a book of poetry. What's the book of poetry called? Where can they find it? Where can the good people find it?
On Amazon, and it's called Spring.
Mhm.
I have to look it up.
I thought she was about to pull the book out like, bam, here it is. That's all right. We'll get back to that. Yeah. Oh, no, put it back up. Put it back up. Let's see that. Let's see
This
that.
this is the this is not the
Stop giving disclaimers. Just put it on the screen. Read it. What's the subtitle? Spring.
it's Spring, a poetic celebration of seasons.
And that seasons deals with what? The different
This
stages that you
this was
go through.
life.
Yeah,
Uh,
the different stages of life as you
Phases
grow
of life
older.
as you grow older. Yeah.
So we already talked about this, about how this was just the entryway for you. Your next book probably won't be a book of poetry. It's
Oh no.
to me, yeah. Talk about what you already know the vision of your next book is, because it's you walking in your genius.
My next book is actually going to be about educating people on aging. Actually,
Actually.
um,
And now you just got equipped a little bit more with this word, this gerontology word. You're like, oh, that's a good word on my tongue, right? And that's gonna shape and direct that book even more. I'm gonna let you keep talking. I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm looking to spread a little bit more light onto what's happening when you age, because most people don't look at that and they don't understand how people age, what transforms in their body, how things just pop up on their bodies and in their minds as they age, and it's not something that they do intentionally. And I just want to make people aware of that. Of when you're having older people in your home, what to do and how to flow with them and not go against them when they're having their we. And so I'm going to talk about my aunt, and I don't want to give it all away because she's one exciting. she was abused really bad in her 80s.
Hmm.
And we went and got her and brought her to live with us. And the things that I learned from her, what to do and what not to do. And that's what I'm going to um, base the book on, basically around her. And
That awareness that you're bringing is the advocacy that I just spoke about, and that message is needed. Uh, that's what genius does. Sometimes it brings you something before you know you need it. Elon Musk is good for creating something before there's a need. And geniuses are always kind of a step ahead. Some of the stuff that Einstein started theorizing is just now being proven by the most advanced telescopes that we have created on the planet that are rotating around the Earth, because they don't do what's conventional. They don't talk about what exists. They talk about the thing that needs to exist. Your book needs to exist. This awareness needs to exist, Mama Brenda.
and
It,
it's gonna be some of it's gonna be hurtful. It's gonna be deep because these are things that are not spoken of.
yep.
These are things that you don't see happening, but it happens, and you people have to be made aware of it. And hopefully, I'll be able to do that. And right now, I don't care how it comes out. If how it impact people.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get it out there.
That's
Hopefully, I'll be able to do that.
you will. That's called drive. That's called passion. That's called genius. Geriatric genius. You know I play with words all day. You stay around me long enough, I'm gonna start putting something down.
Geriatric genius.
But geriatric, I know that word normally is used in a way that has a negative connotation. And just like how genius has a negative connotation, I want you to be able to reframe the reference and the relativity of that word and begin to have it be have a positive connotation instead of a negative one. That word geriatric and gerontology. So I'm excited to edit and format and proofread your next book,
I
because it's going to impact and change the world. Um,
hope so.
what you have. It will, because it breaks God's heart. That we're supposed to have honor for our elders. There's a well of knowledge that if we don't understand and respect it, we're going to lose some things. There's some
That's
experiences that
true.
the elders have that is meant to be passed on so that it's not
Right.
experienced again.
That's right. Yeah,
Right?
we're basically. I'm gonna talk about also. We're invisible. Um, elder Elders are invisible,
Do you
and
know why I'm smiling when I say that? Because it links back to what you said at the very beginning, who you identified as genius were called hidden figures. Continue.
I hadn't thought of that, but yeah. I just wrote that in my. I had to make a post in my class, and I talked about being invisible. I don't know what the subject was, but I spoke on that in class about being. It seems like everything that I do now, it just comes up. Something related to that comes up, and I guess because it angers me so
Mm.
when I see it or when I hear it, or I don't know, it gets in my skin, and I get out of control out of control sometimes because of it, and I will hurt people. I
I full on believe you.
take that part out.
Now it's out there now. It reminds me of the phrase. I know you've heard of this. Like, I hate that with a passion.
Yes,
Connection of those two things. It's not so foreign
yes,
what I'm saying. It's just kind of putting it together so that you can see what you walk in, the anointing that you have, the mantle that you have, and the thing that you're meant to address to begin to resolve it. Because the Lord wants it resolved, and He wants it resolved by your hand. And there's other people out here who have the same. The beautiful thing about genius. You'll begin on an island working, but then as you put your hand to the plow and you begin to work in the distance, you'll see somebody that has a similar passion or a similar talent, and you're like, "Ooh, we could probably do something together
mm-hmm.
that separately we couldn't do." So as you launch out, and these are prophetic words that we're speaking, as you launch out, you're going to see co-laborers in the field, and you're going to be able to do some things together that you could not do apart. So just keep your head on the swivel. And as we kind of come to the conclusion of this podcast today, I just want to start, or rather end, how we started, Mama Brenda, by asking you, Mama Brenda, do you consider yourself to be a genius?
Well, you know, I guess in my own way of thinking, you know, I gotta work on that, Reggie. I have to work on that.
This is why I wanted you on the show, because you a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. But yeah, I need you to get more comfortable. You almost got close to saying it. I told you at the beginning, like you're comfortable saying we're genius. The body is a genius, but I need you to know what limb you are and to be able to say, hey, I have the mind of Christ. Therefore, I am a genius. You don't gotta say it on camera. We're
And
gonna
I
keep
do know I need to be in water though.
okay.
I'm
All right.
not climbing up a tree. I need to be in water. So I do know that.
All right. That's a step in the right direction. Well, look, this has gone pretty much exactly how I thought it was. I'm so happy to have heard you begin to make some affirmations early on as you saw where this was going. And I just want to thank you for being on today. This has been Manu Forti Ministries presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I have been your guest, your host, Reggie Key, and this has been my genius guest, Mama Brenda Law. Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny, by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwellspoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.